Ladies and gentlemen, your trusted platform where African stories are told by Africans for the world to hear. Today, we come not only with joy, not only with pride, but with tears of gratitude welling in our eyes and drums of hope beating in our hearts. Why? Because something extraordinary is happening in our beloved land of Burkina Faso. Something that deserves to be sung in the villages, echoed in the cities, and written in the golden pages of African history.
Travaillons pour bâtir le pays et nous en léguer nos vaillants ancêtres. C'est mon pays, je l'aimerai.
We are here to talk about our bold, fearless, and visionary leader, President Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a man who has not only stood in the line of fire to protect his people, but has now turned his face to the earth and said, "Let us feed ourselves." And who has answered this divine call? None other than our VDP farmers, the proud sons and daughters of the soil, trained, inspired, and sent forth to cultivate the land and feed a nation. Yes, the first cohort of the Presidential Program for Agricultural Production and Food Self-Sufficiency, IPP3A, has completed its mission of training. And today, we celebrate them. We honor them. And we say to the rest of Burkina Faso and all of Africa, follow their example. The Presidential Program for Agricultural Production and Food Self-Sufficiency, or IPP3A, is not a mere government policy. It is a national resurrection. It is President Traoré's response to food dependency. It is his answer to unemployment. It is his declaration of war against hunger. Through IPP3A, 8,000 young Burkinabe are to be trained and deployed across the nation to become agricultural entrepreneurs and heroes of food security. The first 2,000 have just completed their mission in Badnogo, where they received not just training but patriotic immersion. Blood donation, tree planting, civic education, and solidarity activities all formed part of their journey. They are not just farmers. They are patriots. They are builders of a new Burkina. Let us pause for a moment and reflect. These 2,000 young people did more than learn how to till the land. They gave blood for the sick and the wounded. They planted 3,000 trees in one day. They participated in games and bonding activities with national health workers. Why? Because farming is not just an economic activity. In Burkina Faso today, farming is patriotism. Farming is sacrifice. Farming is nation building. Intervlog. Parable. Let us share a parable. One day, a village was starving. The chief called his sons and asked, "Who will save us?" One picked up a gun. The other picked up a Bible, but the youngest picked up a hoe. The people mocked him, but he said, "A bullet cannot grow a yam. A sermon cannot plant maize. But with this hoe, I shall feed the village." Within months, the village flourished. The one who farmed became the true savior. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Intervlog shouts it loud. IPP3A is the most powerful employment engine in West Africa today. With each VDP returning to their municipality, opportunities are being born. From plowing to harvesting, from selling to processing, these young farmers will awaken entire value chains. New jobs will spring up in transport, equipment sales, irrigation services, agribusiness, and more. IPP3A is not just about feeding the belly, it's about feeding the economy. In a world where unemployment chokes the dreams of our youth, President Traoré has shown the way. And Intervlog asks, what are other African leaders waiting for? These VDP farmers come from all ethnic backgrounds, from all provinces, from diverse walks of life. But in Badnogo, they found a common identity. Burkinabe patriots. They sweated together, they bled together, they learned together. They are the answer to division. They are the medicine to youth despair. They are proof that national unity is possible when we focus on purpose, not politics. To all our viewers in Kaya, Ouahigouya, Gaoua, Kudugu, Dori, and every corner of Faso, Intervlog says, copy the VDP farmers. If you are a tailor, stitch with patriotism. If you are a teacher, educate with love. If you are a nurse, heal with courage. If you are idle, pick up a hoe. Let us be a nation where everyone farms, not just the land, but their responsibility. 2. President Ibrahim Traoré has given Africa a model. He has replaced talk with tools. He has turned soldiers into planters, war zones into farms, and hopeless youth into entrepreneurs. Intervlog calls on all African presidents: do not wait for IMF loans. Plant maize. Do not send youth abroad. Send them to the farms. Do not chase food imports. Grow local. Let Africa rise from the soil up. Let every village be a factory. Let every young man be a cultivator. With 2,000 VDPs already trained and 6,000 more on the way, Burkina Faso is on the verge of an agricultural golden age. The fields will blossom. The markets will flourish. The cities will be fed by the villages. The youth will stay because there is hope. The mothers will rejoice because their sons are working. And Intervlog will keep telling this story because it is not only Burkina's story, it is Africa's story. They once said Africa was a sleeping lion, but the lion has awakened in Faso, and he is not roaring in the palace. He is roaring in the farms, in the training centers, in the villages. Burkina Faso, led by President Traoré and followed by its youth, is that lion. And Intervlog stands as its echo, shouting to the world, the lion is farming, the lion is feeding itself. So what are you waiting for, Africa? Join the movement, join the farm, join the future. With IPP3A, Burkina Faso has shown us the way. The land is ready, the youth are ready, the leadership is ready, and Intervlog will be here week after week, praising the farmers, praising the leaders, and praising the soil. Because this is not the end. This is just the beginning. Long live the VDP farmers. Long live Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Long live a self-sufficient Burkina Faso. Long live the African agricultural revolution. Intervlog, signing off with love, pride, and the sweet scent of millet in the wind. Stay tuned for more stories that celebrate the rise of Africa, one field at a time. Presidential Initiative IPP3A. The first wave of agricultural VDPs are ready, a step towards food security in Burkina Faso. The first cohort of young VDP farmers has completed their training, a cornerstone of the presidential program for agricultural production and food self-sufficiency, IPP3A. After an intensive period of agricultural training, about 1,500 young agricultural entrepreneurs followed a 3-week patriotic immersion at the National VDP Training Center in Badnogo. This Saturday, June 14th, 2025, marks the end of this patriotic swim. The day was paced with various civic activities, blood donation for the sick and defense forces, planting more than 3,000 trees, and sports and recreational activities to strengthen cohesion between participants and staff of the National Health Bureau. Great projects in Burkina, BNGPB. This first cohort of 2,000 young people on a goal of 8,000 will soon join their respective municipalities. They will cultivate the land there, adopt modern farming practices, create jobs, and contribute directly to the nation's food independence. Abbreviations: VDP, Volontaire pour la défense de la patrie, Volunteer for the Defense of the Homeland. The Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, French, Volontaire pour la Défense de la Patrie, ABBBRR. VDP is an auxiliary and irregular force in Burkina Faso. Formed to fight jihadist insurgents in the country, it operates as an auxiliary force supporting the Burkina Faso Armed Forces. On November 7, 2019, following a jihadist attack on a mining convoy, the president of Burkina Faso called for the creation of a civilian self-defense force. On January 21st, 2020, the Parliament of Burkina Faso passed a law establishing the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland. The law stipulated that people could voluntarily join the VDP, and that after 14 days of training, they were to be equipped with communication and vision equipment, together with weapons. Burkina Faso's self-defense militia, the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, or Les Volontaires pour la Défense de la Patrie, commonly known by the acronym VDP, is a self-defense militia in Burkina Faso. As of 2022, the number of active volunteer fighters under the VDP umbrella was estimated to be 28,000.1. The VDP operates nationwide, recruiting members from the country's various ethnic groups, with a majority coming from sedentary communities such as the Mossi, Fouls, Gourmanche, and Songhai. The VDP has its roots in pre-existing initiatives, such as the Kogel-Weogo and Dozo self-defense groups, which have become increasingly involved in counterinsurgency operations since the beginning of the crisis in 2015. These self-defense groups initially formed the core and recruitment base for the country's irregular People's Defense Forces. Then President Roch Kabore founded the VDP by law on 21st January 2020 to mobilize, train, and arm civilians to defend their communities and the country. The group was established 2 months after a particularly attack by Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal Muslimin, JNIM, on a gendarmerie-escorted convoy of the mining company Semafo. The day after the attack, Kabore, in a televised address to the nation, called for a general mobilization of the population against jihadist militancy and ordered the recruitment of volunteers for the defense of the homeland in areas under Threat Point 3. The Burkinabe military has adopted a systematic approach for the establishment of VDPs within Red Zones Point 4 and their subsequent management. All candidates are sent to complete 2 to 3 weeks of training at regional military garrisons or at the National Patriotic Watch Brigade (BNVP) training center in Ouagadougou. The training centers are also responsible for providing weapons to successful candidates. Once established, the VDP units are then placed under the command of the nearest military detachment, specialized police units, 6th Gendarmerie Brigade, or if none of these units are available, the nearest police station. The VDP in Burkina Faso symbolizes the formalization and legalization of community-led security and the evolution of popular self-defense measures in response to escalating conflict and insecurity. It also represents a shift toward a more structured and state-supervised militia system that aims to address the growing jihadist threat. This break with the past has set Burkina Faso apart in the region as a country where the state directly oversees citizen militias. Kabore establishing the VDP and navigating militant threats. January 2020. January 2022. Kabore's tenure was characterized by a deteriorating security situation, increasingly attacks that prompted a state of emergency, and worsening communal tensions. In response to the escalating jihadist, the government formalized the VDP to integrate community-led security efforts into the national counterinsurgency strategy. This move was intended to strengthen Burkina Faso's defense against the jihadists by arming the civilian population and integrating the existing self-defense militias into the state's security apparatus. Following the creation of the VDP, Burkina Faso experienced an intensification of jihadist, including targeted attacks on communities, which were seen as a response to the state's military operations and its alignment with the militias. The Al-Qaeda-affiliated jihadist group JNIM and the Islamic State Sahel Province, IS Sahel, responded to the VDP's popular mobilization with retribution against local communities. JNIM imposed blockades on many towns and villages. These attacks not only highlighted the retaliatory tactics of jihadist groups, but also underscored the far-reaching consequences of the state's counterinsurgency strategy, which often led to serious human rights violations. The VDP's recruitment practices largely favored sedentary communities, to the exclusion of the Fulani and other pastoralist groups, exacerbating existing ethnic cleavages. P recruits against Fulani communities are a testament to the challenges of integrating armed civilian units into official security strategies without exacerbating inter-ethnic conflict. In 2020, the Traoré government entered into early negotiations with JNIM, which were the first to take place beyond the local level, including the lifting of an embargo on Djibo and the relatively calm conduct of presidential elections. However, in 2021, the reported toll among VDP members was many times higher than the reported number of regular soldiers. This showed that the VDP had become increasingly exposed by replacing the army on the front line, especially in remote and rural areas under jihadist influence. This period saw some of the deadliest attacks since the beginning of the insurgency committed by militants in reaction to the state-backed counter-mobilization. Solhan, in June 2021, one of the deadliest attacks since the beginning of the insurgency, reportedly left around 160 people dead, raising questions about the effectiveness of the government's counterinsurgency strategy and the role of the VDP. A month before Traoré was overthrown in a military coup. Damiba's strategy undone amid persistent insecurity. January 2022, September 2022. In January 2022, after ousting Traoré, Lieutenant-Colonel Paul-Henri Sandaogo, Damiba assumed power and promised to improve security through a comprehensive strategy that included political, amnesty, and reconciliation initiatives. Although Damiba established local committees for dialogue and demobilization, insecurity persisted during his tenure and jihadists continued to spread. While military efforts were considerable during Damiba's 8-month reign, more than 200 airstrikes and operations, in which nearly 1,300 militants reportedly were killed and over 20 militant bases destroyed, they were not enough to curb the tide of increasing militant activities. Under Damiba, the VDP's involvement in joint military operations remained limited, yet they increasingly faced JNIM attacks. As JNIM militants pressed their operations further inland on the so-called Central Mossi Plateau, the formation of VDP units often occurred on the go. A major setback to Damiba's leadership was the evacuation of remaining VDP members and civilians from Majuari Department in May 2022 after a year-long campaign by JNIM against the military, the VDP, and the inhabitants of the department. This was followed by JNIM's capture of Solenzo, the provincial capital of Banwa Province, in August 2022. Despite Damiba's attempts to balance military and political solutions, his strategy fell short of achieving the hoped-for stabilization, leading to his ousting by Captain Ibrahim Traoré in September of the same year. Traoré's shift toward total war and mass mobilization, September 2022, December 2023. Traoré deposed Damiba just 8 months into his rule. The transition marked a significant shift in Burkina Faso's approach to addressing its security crisis. Traoré's heavy-handed tactics against the insurgency stand in contrast to Damiba's comprehensive strategy, which included political components and dialogue. Traoré took a more uncompromising stance by adopting a total war strategy against insurgents, emphasizing the need for a robust militarized response over negotiations. This approach reflects Traoré's belief in a more confrontational method for reclaiming lost territories and securing the nation. Responding to Traoré's mobilization call, a VDP recruitment drive between October and November 2022 saw an overwhelming turnout, with 90,000 individuals signing up, far exceeding the initial target of 50,000.1. This mass mobilization arguably underscores the popular support for Traoré's strategy and the VDP's central role in Burkina Faso's military and security plans. Under Traoré, the VDP's role in military strategy has been significantly amplified, not just as auxiliary forces, but as a key element of the national defense strategy against jihadists. Before coming to power, Traoré held responsibilities for training fighters who acted as force multipliers during the coup against Damiba. Under Traoré, the VDP has become a central pillar of his military approach. The aggressive mobilization and expansion of the VDP under Traoré have long-term implications on Burkina Faso's social fabric and intercommunal relations. The VDP is the fourth most active armed actor in Burkina Faso, after JNIM, the military, and ES Sahel. Their operations span a wide geographic area, encompassing 35 provinces and 158 departments across 12 of the country's regions. This geographically widespread activity underscores the VDP's significant role in Burkina Faso's ongoing conflict and efforts against jihadist groups. After defeating the militant group with the VDP, JNIM, the military, and IS Sahel, what's next? Well, on Saturday, June 14, 2025, Burkina Faso's President Captain Ibrahim Traoré deployed about 1,500 volunteers for the defense of the homeland. French, Volontaires pour la Défense de la Patrie, ABBR, VDP to farm, after an intensive period of agricultural training. This is the end of our program today.